the forensic science has evolved greatly over a period of time and has changed and made so many advancements, not only in terms of technological, but even nomenclature, forensic to forensic science, forensic science laboratory to Directorate of Forensic Services, and thereafter there are other things also where we have progressed a lot. So it is not only tools and techniques or nomenclature, even the disciplines have also evolved over a period of time. There have been a lot of evolution in them. For example, there were only physics only. Now it is a voice identification, digital forensics. In the computer, in the chemistry, there was only chemistry, but now it is narcotics. So in every sphere, you find a lot of development has taken place as far as forensic science in India is concerned and around the globe. And it is earlier in the last quarter of the 20th century, that is 1970s or so, it was generally taught to the law graduates that scientific evidence is weak evidence and should not be relied upon. Because that was a state when country or this forensic science has not progressed so much. But over a period of time, it has grown up and it has made a lot of development. Now, there are a lot of things from the Supreme Court itself, where they say that the scientific evidence should be provided to the courts and best available science should be delivered to the courts. There are so many courts from the Supreme Court also. So that could be possible only when the forensic science made a progress. And it's not only forensic people are seeing these changes, but I would like to emphasize here is that even the courts are also very much observing and they're alive to the changing that is taking place in the field of forensic science. And it is for this reason that now recently the government of India has introduced a new bill, also identification bill, which was earlier powers to take the fingerprints, and this was only in the Indian Prisoner Act 1920, but the recently government introduced identification bill in 2022, in which a lot of things have been incorporated which were available in 1920. So what I'm trying to say is that the things are changing very fast and contributes for the betterment of the profession also. Now, as I told you, 1984 DNA time came because there were so many advantages. There were some limitations as far as biological blood stain evidence was concerned, because one of the major evidence problem was that you could not establish these stains. There is a time shelf life also, because these stains, biological markers as this ABO and enzyme typing was concerned, they were not very much stable at room temperature, and most of the time we have cases which were exposed to different environment conditions. We did not succeed much. Only up to a certain time of limit which was possible in the blood groups also and enzyme typing also. But later on, what happened that another issue came that we could not succeed in the sexual assault cases. But with the advent of DNA technology, it proved to be a very good tool in the hands of the forensic experts, and it not only helped us in establishing the crime scene, establishing the link between the crime and the criminal, and its crime and this criminal and the scene of crime, but other areas also, and that too with certainty. And these things certainly helped us, and the evidences were proved in the court of law also, ultimately accepted by the courts, and not it helped in homicide cases, but in sexual assault cases. Why I'm telling sexual assault cases? Because earlier there was a problem whether we are doing blood grouping or enzyme typing or this protein typing. All these parameters were applied before the advent of DNA technology. Then there was a problem in establishing the link, especially when there is a assaults. The people who committed the assaults were closely related to a family member. We also experienced this type of a case way back in 1922 or so, when there was these are first cousins who assaulted the victim, but then it was difficult for us to isolate or to separate these people on the basis of blood groups. But nowadays, this DNA technology has proved to be excellent, and is a good bone in terms of that we not only able to isolate the 2% of people committing this assault, but gang rape cases also. There also we succeed very nicely, and we are able to establish who are the contributor, who started the initiated the crime, and all these things. So that is very good help in as far as DNA typing has done in the case of sex assault. Similarly, in the case of maternity, paternity disputes are there also. Sometimes we come across these things also. In those institutions, sometimes baby swapping cases are there in the hospital. Sometimes there are other issues also where people say, I have not fathered the baby, though it is living there for the last so many years. There are cases in the Supreme Court in which the DNA typing technology, in spite of the fact that the lady claimed that this baby was fathered by the Mr. So-and-so whom she had married about so many years back, but did not stay with him. That is Nandalal Vasudev. This case in 2014, it has been decided by the Supreme Court. In that case, in spite of the fact that our 101 Indian Evidence Act 112 clearly stipulates that any child born during wedlock will be presumed to be the biological offspring of the parents. But in this case, no doubt they both were a married person and they had a baby also. But the father time and again said that I have not fathered the baby in spite of the fact I am married to her. I have not been physically in contact with this lady, his wife. But this case landed in the court, in the lower court, and the lower court gave, you have to support the baby that was given in favor of the mother of the baby. And then they also, maintenance was allowed. And this fellow went to the High Court. High Court, later this court, and they said they first to deposit the whole amount that is due. That he went in 2011 or so. The case was decided in 1998 and is initiated in 1996 and decided in 98 that his maintenance is to be given by Mr. Nandalal to his wife, Nandalal Vasudev, from Maharashtra state is the case. And then in 2011, then it landed in the Supreme Court also. Then the DNA was done by the Maharashtra Nagpur FSL, and it was conveyed to the result was that the baby was not fathered by the Mr. So and so Nandalal. Then the mother said, no, it is. I have not believed this report. It may be done by some other laboratory. Then the case was referred to CFS in Hyderabad. Then because science is science, it will come the same results, whether you do Nagpur or you do in Hyderabad. Hyderabad CFS will also give the same results. And in that case, the result was that this baby has not been fathered by Mr. So-and-so. In that situation, the Supreme Court said that though our section 112 Indian Evidence Act clearly stipulates that any child born during wedlock will be biological offspring of the parents. But in this case, they said, no doubt, it is a law Indian evidence says like that. But our DNA test is not saying that. So in order to prove this, they said, okay, whenever there is a dispute to decide whether this such type of dispute, our scientific evidence should prevail because truth must prevail. The hallmark of the justice was that truth must prevail. So in spite of the fact that I was giving this title, science beats law. No doubt law says it is to be believed, but our science says no. And Supreme Court upheld the same thing. So that was maternity and paternity disputes. Similarly, missing person identifications also. These are also emerging area. In the emerging area means in the sense that people are taking notice of. There is according to one estimate, it is said that around 60, there are so many people, they have lost people and they are not identified they are not able to be linked to their biological parents or sometimes to their homes. So in those situations, DNA gives us proves to be a very good tool as far as this part. Similarly, there is another thing is child trafficking. Now, according to one estimates, about 40,000 kids in India, they are lost. That was figure out 5-6 years back. I don't have any recent. And out of those, only 12,000 kids, they are taken to they are united with the parents, but remaining kids remain untraced. So what I'm trying to say here is that now the DNA technology, the way we are making database and later on we come to know genetic genealogy and all those things, those will are helping us a lot as far as new tool has come out. Similarly, in the disaster victim identification, there also we have applied this knowledge, especially there was a tour of they were on holiday tour, to Himachal Pradesh state from Hyderabad Engineering College. Around 2014, this incidents occurred and there were 24 students. They have come on a tour to Shimla, Manali, because these are tourist destinations. On the way, they got down from the vehicle, they from their bus, and they ventured into a river, that is a Bias. And because of there is a dam is there, that is a water is this water has been held up for the purpose of electricity production, hydro production. And so sometimes whenever there is a water supply is more with them, they just simply release the water. But when this was happening there, and ultimately these are 24, the students, they were washed away with this water. So now, in the beginning, some of the kids could be, children, the students could be identified, because I knew beforehand that after some time, the bodies which will be recovered from this water body, they will be beyond recognition, because the clothing may not be there. There may be so many team composition changes, and there will be a challenge for us for the investigation chances. So I proactively asked the SP that area that now, for example, 15 bodies you have recovered, the remaining 8-9 bodies, they were pushed as a challenge. Challenge in the terms of that, whenever you come across a body, all the left out set of parents, they will come forward to claim the body. So what I asked my counterpart in Hyderabad, director, I asked, requested her that whatever number of left out parents are there of these missing kids and missing students, what you do is you prepare the DNA profile of all these parents, and you send all this data to our laboratory. And after that, whenever we come across any body from this water, this in the river, so we will collect the sample. And then what we did is we trained a person and was deputed near the site in the dam area. And when a body was recovered, that scientifically we diagnosed the sample to be collected. And after collection of the samples, these samples were immediately transported to our state FSL. They were then properly transported to the laboratory, and then they were processed. After processing, DNA profile was generated. And then whenever DNA profile was generated, it was compared with the left out set of parents. Wherever there was a match, only that set of parents. Now this is a water tank in that area. Per chance in the year 2016, in the month of July, August, you must have heard there was a lot of cases of jaundice in Shobha because of the faulty water supply scheme. So as a result thereof, there was a lot of pressure on the government. They made a certain guidelines also that these water tanks which are being made supplied to different parts of the town, different types of town, these water tanks are there in the town. So this was in one of the area that is Lakkad Bazaar area, VIP area, the judiciary people and some VIPs were living there. So what they did is they came around 3-4 kilometers from that area, that is Shimla, is another area of Shimla. So they came, they took this body of the victim and brought it to this point, and from here, because this is a manhole, it was dumped inside. Now this body cannot come out because the one slab has been tied behind with his back. So this is the information they gave. Now what was to be done? The next morning, when they gave the people, they congratulated, everybody was congratulated, so we have cracked the case, now we will go further and all that. We need another visit by the forensic experts. So next morning, we got this tank cleared. The old water was drained out, and at the bottom, please go ahead. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Yes. Now at the bottom, we were able to find these types of traces. This is a mandible. This is a skull bone. These are the other small pieces of bone, and this is this slab that was tied on the back of the baby. So now this public health department, that is water supply department, they said we have been regularly cleaning this water tank. How could these bones be there? These bones is nothing but that of a monkey. Now they came with a new LB because they wanted to save their own skin, because they have not cleared these tanks properly. So they came out with this LB that these bones are of a monkey. But perhaps they were not aware that forensic people will be able to tell whether these bones are of a monkey or a human being. So that question then case was referred to the forensic medicine department. They come because you find out these are the serrated margin, and this is a piece of skull bone. The serrated margin is a characteristic of a human bone. These serrated margins are not present in any type of animal bone. It is only in human skull. So serrated margin, then mandible, this is the lower mandible. This is also shape and all these things is a characteristic of a human. So then ultimately, then in order to establish whether this human being, it stands established a human bone, But now the next question was whether these bones are of a missing child or not. That's the name of U. Gupta. That is or not. So what they did, we asked the samples from the DNA sample from the parents, and those samples were taken. And one of my colleagues did their DNA testing, and we were able to establish that these bones belong to the of Mr. U. Gupta, because they were DNA profiles. 50% was from the meeting with the mother and 50% with the father. Now, important question that remains still unanswered. That was whether it was a live drowning or a normal dead drowning. Because I knew beforehand, the moment I give a report, because in this case, what it did is, I did the diatom test. I did the diatom test because diatom was introduced in Himachal Pradesh by me only. I did the diatom test. And when I did the diatom, I was, in the first instance, I was able to find some diatom in the microscope. But in order to avoid the element of biasness, in the morning, Mr. Barry Fisher told that we need to take care of the element of biasness. So in order to avoid the element of biasness, because just possible I was associated with this case in the investigation from the beginning itself. So I thought just possible, and the element of biasness must have crept into my mind. And just why I was able to see anything which looked like a datum. So in order to rule out that possibility, so I summoned my colleague, 4 or 5 people were there in the biology and DNA. I asked one by one, we just see, I have been able to find a datum. You also see whether the datums are there or not. So all the people came and they said, no, we are not able to see. Then again, I go, okay, no problem. We again prepared the slide. And second time when we prepared the slide, again I was able to see. I told them, you see at this such a certain point. All 4 or 5 people were again called. Again, they said, we are not able to see. Then third time. Now, on the other hand, the police CID was time and again insisting, sir, report DGA, because it is required to be challan is to put them in the court. But I was not able to give a report because I was knowing there was some doubt in the minds of the, because I wanted to rule out the element of biasness. That third time also, I prepared a slide. I go, no problem. I will prepare a slide again. Then the third time also I prepared and showed them. Then this time they said, sir, kuch lagta hai. Again, they were not sure. Because the lives and liberties of the individual 3 people are involved in this case. So we cannot go with this kuch lagta hai. We need to have a complete information, complete data, correct data. Then fourth time I prepared this slide. At this time, everybody said in one go, sir, this is a clear-cut case of we are able to find the items, you can give a positive. So that is how we rule out the element of biasness. So sometimes, because I knew it must have crept into my mind also. Because I was interested to know why it was, because in my state, because I initiated the investigation, I asked the police officer to request us for the scene of crime visit. And because, why? Because I have been living in this town for the last 2-3 decades and have not come across any case where any person or any baby has been lost by, because this city itself is being frequented or being visited by different tourists all over throughout the year. And thousands of tourists come over here. And nobody has ever complained that I came to Shimla and I lost my child here. And this is the first case in the town where we are, the local person is there and we are not able to trace it. So that was the thing which was weighing in my mind. I thought that may creep, this element of biasness may creep into my mind and may give a false positive results also. So in order to rule out that thing, I said, no, I have to repeat this test for 4 times, but ultimately I gave the positive report. That this was, and that established the mode of death. That is drowning. One is causal death, identity. And you see, I knew the moment the judge will come to know that there was a live drowning of this small baby, innocent baby, helpless baby, then what would be the result? I knew it beforehand. Go ahead. Next, please. मासूम युग के तीनों हत्यारों को सजाए मौत. I knew beforehand. The moment the things will come to know in the minds of the court that this was a small baby, small innocent, helpless baby has been drowned live, he will not go less than a death sentence. And you see here.